Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Beyond Terrain podcast. I'm your host, Leah Dalton. Today, we have the return of another fantastic guest, Mr. Bryan Michelson. Really looking forward to this chat today. We had a great chat last time. I loved it. It really kind of changed my life a little bit. As we were just joking there before the episode started. He was saying, "Yeah, I'm outside sitting on the floor now." I'm not outside. You got that one up on me, but I am sitting on the floor, and you guys probably know watching the podcast every episode pretty well since our episode we recorded together back in, I think it was just the new year, maybe it was before the new year. I think we recorded in 2023,
Yeah.
and I've done most of the episodes now sitting on the floor, and I do most of my work sitting on the floor now, getting back to the ground. um, it's had great changes, my posture, my biomechanics, everything. It translates so well. Strength in my hips have opened up. It's just amazing. I could praise this man and his work all day. He's really opened up my perspective, and so I really appreciate him. Anyways, Bryan, thanks so much for coming on today, buddy.
I love that, man. No, thanks for having me back. I had so much fun last time. And really cool. I didn't know that you kept the floor resting postures since our chat, and they had such a big benefit. That's cool. Now to call them my work, like the floor resting postures and these natural,
Oh,
whoa, easy. You'll make me, hell of a big headed there. But it's so amazing how it's just a return to what's natural, and a lot of what you talk about, a lot of what everyone's exploring in regaining health is returning to what's natural. It's pretty simple. Um, well, not always. You can go into the complexities of it, but at the end of the day, the practical things that we can all take away are so simple. And sitting on the floor is one of those things. Niggles, aches, pains, injuries, the way your body can just decompress and find its alignment by sitting on the floor is crazy. So to hear you keeping that up, and to have the benefits, I'm not surprised about the benefits, but I'm just stoked that you got into it, man, because that's really cool. Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a way of life, right? Like, and when you are trying to align yourself with nature, we obviously don't want to forego all of the modern world, right? Like,
Yeah.
we want to take the good, leave what we can, right? Leave the bad stuff, and really integrate these natural principles into our lives. So when you hear about something so simple as, moving down to the floor, I don't work in my office anymore. I work in the yoga room on a little coffee table, and I got a nice sheepskin under me, and I just, that's all I need. Like, I'll do all my work here. It's a very simple shift that you can do. It doesn't alter, the work that I'm doing. I can still work at my computer,
Mm.
but such a small shift that a little bit closer to living a natural way of life. And that's like what we're all about here, is kind of bridging that modern and natural world together. Those natural principles, integrating them into our lives. And that's what I love. Maybe not the originator, but you're certainly bringing light to this very simple thing, right? And you take from nature quite a bit yourself.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. And we can learn so much from just yeah, reconnecting to nature, and the way the body decompresses and gets back into alignment is just such a tangible way to realize, like, oh, this stuff works, man. And then you start to open up to everything else, and you can go into all the realms of reconnecting to nature, from movement and training, obviously nutrition, and understanding mindset, and modern things that have sort of crept in to come back to nature. But then again, you know we can't forget about our modern advances. There's so much that we can do there. Everyone who's in the movement and biomechanics space, they kind of want everyone to be moving all day like we're supposed to. But the reality is we can't do that. So there's this benefit of having a workout where you have this compressed time, where you really work on these movement patterns, realign your body, and doing some damage control. So yeah, we live in the modern world, and mitigating a lot of these things that are creeping in, these inevitable, you know, toxins in the form of, water, food, and that sort of thing. It's quite an obvious example. All these things sort of creep in. So it's so much more important now to, I say detoxify your body. Saying that to you, I don't know whether that's sort of the right way to go about it or not. But essentially, you're having a detoxification. Same thing with movement. you are detoxifying your body, your movement patterns from holding these compressions, these tensions that creep in because of the way we're moving or not moving. And it goes as deep as traumas. I'm sort of dabbling in that. That's not my expertise. I use the body um, specifically and look at movement to optimize performance, get out of pain. But I've had too many clients come back to me and say, like, dude, my confidence, these certain aspects and areas of life, things that are like opening up in my brain function. I'm like, oh, dude, I've got to look into this stuff more because we're unlocking, you know, traumas, tensions in the body that are literally causing this person to, have a certain personality even that changes when you unlock the body. And then you have people who go the other way around. We're getting deep already here, but you know, people go the other way around. They have these experiences and they release certain traumas mentally, emotionally, and then their body unlocks and people are like, whoa, you're completely different, or you're no longer sort of holding over to one side, you're more open and upright. Someone who's more open and upright sits into their backside. They're typically more confident, forward moving, compressed chair, a little bit more withdrawn, not so sure of yourself. And I see that time and time again. I've been writing notes on clients when I do postural and movement analysis. And, I've realized what a gift it has been for me. And I respect and appreciate any client who comes to me and allows me to analyze their posture and movement, because I get to know so much about them. I guess it's now without them knowing, you sort of learn to understand who they are from their posture and movement. And then spending time with them over the weeks and months, even years that I coach them, you learn to, see if your assumptions based on posture and movement are true or not. So I've had all these experiments and these trials to see how tension is held in the body and how that correlates to a certain characteristic, even personality. So yeah, that's fascinating. But we're going so deep on that so soon. But posture, movement, the body. Obviously, I'm sort of passionate about it, guys. So your listeners already is just like, I'll dial it in, let Liv create some structure here. But yeah, I'm passionate about this stuff, guys, and it can change your life.
Well, you can hear it in your voice too, and obviously you can see it behind your eyes. So, um, it's so interesting, man. And like that connection has been talked about so much, right? And it seems to be overlooked a little bit too. Um, I remember listening to Dr. Harvey Bigelson, big in the terrain movement, talked a lot about the connection between the psychological, between the physical, how disease manifests, things like that. And, he was a great practitioner. And the first thing he would do is watch how people walked into his office, and he would watch their biomechanics. And he said that it alone will get you more information than you need to be able to handle and deal with these clients. He said it could tell the whole story just on how they walk in, how they hold themselves, how you say hello, how you make eye contact. All of these things are telltale signs of one's internal world too, right? Um, so I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. I think that's absolutely so interesting. And that movement piece, I just had the most phenomenal discussion last week with Daniel Roitus. And we talked about how with psychological traumas, it might not be the root of the cause, because ancestrally we didn't, even though we experienced psychological traumas, we didn't have these modern diseases. So
Mm.
his piece, part of it was maybe there's something that's not allowing us to process this trauma properly, and I think movement is one of those things. We are chronically sitting still, and we've discussed this in our last episode. If you haven't listened to that episode, go and listen to it. It changed my life. But you know we sit still and we don't move our bodies, and that is one of the things I think that is not allowing us to process these events that have happened to us. It's not allowing us to live the life that we're meant to live. It's such a simple thing, movement. And it doesn't have to be like we're saying here. You don't need to be running around all day and night. It's as simple as sitting on the floor if you're wanting to rest. It's
Mm.
just a slight difference there. But all of these things are the way it helps your body gain alignment. And that alignment, I think, can allow our bodies to work properly. That's what the osteopaths talk about. I think osteopathy is one of the coolest fields out there. slight little adjustments to the body, very, very subtle, but allowing that body and the energy to flow properly. And we could probably get into fascia and all of these different ways of
Mm,
explaining this, and the way that the energy moves through the body again has been talked about for thousands of years,
mm,
through many different traditional systems of medicine and health, So
mm.
movement, I think, is one of those missing pieces, alongside the diet, alongside, avoiding the toxicities, different stuff like that.
Mm.
It often all goes hand in hand too. For some reason, people start moving their bodies, they want to eat good.
Oh yeah.
Or they start eating good and they want to start moving their body,
Mm.
and then it just everything always goes hand in hand. So you kind of got to pick one, and everything it's hard to really do it in isolation because everything always just comes together beautifully. And that movement piece, though, I think is big. I think it's an easy one for people to start with because it's easy to get motivated. You want to move, you want to, improve your posture. It just looks better too, right? It looks more confident, even if you
Yeah,
kind of
for
fake it till
sure.
you make it.
Yeah, for sure. Good posture. I mean, it's sexy the way you present yourself. You can tell when someone walks in. You see their posture, their alignment. Uh, and what you're touching on there. It's the our, our body, our mind, spirit. Everything's sort of connected, shall we say? I don't look into all of the nitty gritty, but that truly makes sense. They talk about how trauma is held in the body. It's not just the brain, the fascia, and the tissues. Are all connected, a part of our brain, our network. Memory, tension, trauma held in different areas. So the body needs to be clear and free and decompressed so that energy can move. Otherwise, you're stuck, you're stagnant. And when you're stuck, you're stagnant in your mind, you're holding in your body as well. As soon as even your listeners, if you think about being stuck on a topic, or worried, think about something in the past that upset you, you hold it in your stomach. For me, it's around my sort of rib cage, top of my abdominals here. It's just like, we hold that, let go, decompress, move. And that's what the floor positions do. They decompress and realign you. And it's not like an active like stretch and get down to these things. It's like, find where you can decompress and continue to do that. And soon enough you're relaxed, you're at ease down here. Sitting in a squat like I am now, your whole body, upper body, your belly should all be relaxed and at ease. And that's the decompression. Now, the letting go of trauma, dance used to be that. Like cultures, communities all valued dance, and part of ceremonies, I believe all across the world, there was dance, right? And I truly believe dance is a way to, you know, get rid of all of that, and reset, realign the body. And we've lost that tool. So there's the floor decompression to realign, decompress the body, and then dance, man. Like, whoa, I think it's huge. And it's something, I never used to dance. And now, like, getting into this movement stuff, you understand, like, oh, of course we should be dancing, we should be sort of flowing, moving. Um and that's our sort of get rid of trauma, any tension, and it really works. Animals have that sort of ability when they get hurt to eventually, when they're ready, sort of shake things off, so that things sort of reset and realign, and then everything's sort of soft again. We need to have that, right? And when you sit and you listen to your body, you get a little you know detachment, or like you can feel like, oh, there's a very particular point, like underneath your scapula. You will be able to work out that exact point yourself, that a physiotherapist or any massage therapist like couldn't get into. Like, you can feel that out, and then it's like, oh, sweet, is gone. So when you understand and really tune in and feel your body, oh, you can learn so much and release so much. Yeah.
So cool, man. And it's kind of part of that know thyself maxim, right? Trying to learn about yourself, trying to tune into your own sensations, the feelings in your body. You mentioned even like if you are worried about the past, some sort of trauma or whatever you want to call it,
Mm,
you can feel that in your body. Where do you feel it? You said kind of like on your rib cage area. I
mm,
always feel it deep in my stomach, if something's bothering me, and kind of getting that the movement of the lower back even is something we're kind of taught in the modern, approach to, the gym rat, you got to keep your back straight and locked all the time. Like
yeah.
moving that spine has been a big thing for me. And that's been a big transition to try and learn like to strengthen and move my spine. Um, because it's something that I didn't do for so long. I did the deadlifts and I did the bench press and the squats and everything, and it was always static as possible. And if
Mm.
my back ever bent at all, I was like, I got to go down and wait, got to make sure my back stays perfectly straight and locked in all the time. But I don't think that's the way. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, that torso and that spine, when you unlock and you free by bringing the tension more towards your backside, right? Like when you lengthen into the glutes, and most people have these short, tight glutes that don't want to work and take any load. When we lengthen into the glutes and those hips sit behind us, now the backside of the body, mid, lower, upper back, all of this beautiful fascia. We're used to seeing the anatomy pictures, that white tissue of the thoracolumbar fascia. Many might know that, but there's this fascia all up our backside that's designed to hold this tension for us naturally without strain. So we've got our backside and everything up our back. It's designed to hold this tension. And then the whole spine is relaxed and at ease. The front side of your body isn't holding the tension because it doesn't have to. The tension's where it's naturally supposed to be. And now your spine can flow, move, shoulders can dance, you can throw, strike. It's beautiful, and movement gets unlocked. Now when we go into the gym, we think we're training that backside, right? And people are like, oh, I'm training my glutes, I'm training my hips. But what are you teaching them to do? You're teaching them to squeeze, externally rotate, and thrust forward. Okay, so that sounded like a lot, but essentially they're just squeezing and tightening and thrusting forward. Your shoulders are reaching back. Now what's happening? Yes, you're creating all this tension through the backside, thrusting you forwards, but now your hips are going to be thrust forwards. Even when you walk and run, people have this sort of heel strike, and all this tension is now having to be held through the front side of the body. So not only are you shortening and thrusting those glutes forward, now there's all this tension on the front side of the body. Hey, let's make it even worse. Let's do some pec deck and let's do some crunches and hold our abs so tight. Now your torso is being crushed. The hips thrusting forward, not only sort of gravity doing its thing, on your lumbar and your lower back, because your hips are right below your shoulders instead of hips back and everything decompressed. So we've got gravity, and then we've got the front side of our body holding short, back side of our body trying to sort of play catch up. And then let's say you go do some lat pull downs and things like that, or you're doing things to train your lats. Now you're being crushed from both sides. Now think of a Coke can being crushed, right? It's going to also go to one side. So all these asymmetries that we see in the body, people like held their torso over to one side, it's because of this torso compression and tension. We see it often in bodybuilders who train symmetrically, all of the sort of right muscles, very sort of scientific about it, but they end up asymmetrical. And they themselves can't understand why, because all this torso pressure and tension. But then I'll take that same bodybuilder or powerlifter, Olympic weightlifter, CrossFit, of which I've worked with a few. We decompress, we lengthen into the glutes, allow that backside to hold the tension, soften through the front side, get them flowing and moving. And all of a sudden, when they're, at rest, they're way more symmetrical. And they like that. They're like, oh, wow, I've been trying to chase this symmetry for forever. But, here it is doing decompressive work. So, yeah, I went hard down that because the spine and the bodybuilders, guys hitting the gym, they give their spine a beating. And yeah, it's going to catch you. It catches you. It caught me. Yeah, I end up sort of could have started with this story, but I was nearly paralyzed. Like deadlifting, it was a real mess. Nearly, yeah, bad. I was going down the bad route. Yeah, deadlifts, clean
Yeah.
swings, snatches, getting those glutes so short and tight, training the abdominals. My back went one day, doing a deadlift, not even heavy. I was meticulous about form. Then that lower back just said enough. Could feel nothing for about 20 minutes. I was just lying on the floor. I thought I was paralyzed, man. And that's what it was, this real understanding. Hey, I'm doing something wrong. Because I was big, jack, ripped, fit, but fragile, so fragile. But yeah, man,
Fragile.
you went that route
Yeah,
as well, right?
definitely, man. I was, you know, got my first waist set when I was like 14 years old, and I was like, gotta go to the gym, man. Gotta get big. Gotta get huge.
Gotta get jacked.
I was just a scrawny little kid. Yeah, but like it's funny how things change over time too, and um, it depends on your goals, right? Like, you know, my goal was to put as much weight on as possible and to get as big of muscles as possible, and
Mm,
you can do that, but it at least needs to have a little bit of balance of like natural movement patterns, biomechanics, proper form. You can still get big kind of like doing this natural way of moving, man. There's some beasts out there that are, living the ancestral lifestyle. Like they've always been around. You don't have to do bench and deadlift and squat. It probably depends more on what you eat more than anything if you want to get big. If you're living that natural way of life and you're moving, you're going to sculpt your body properly. Like you said, that symmetry piece is a big one. I
mm.
couldn't get symmetry in the gym, man, and I was like obsessed with it. I was obsessed with trying to become symmetrical, and that's what all bodybuilders kind of want. But through really toying with those subtleties of the body, man. Like when you're really feeling into your movements, all right, I'm a centimeter ahead on this side. You could feel that. It's amazing once you really tune in. And um, one thing that I kind of developed even in my old like when I was bodybuilding, when I was younger in like high school and university and stuff like that. Yeah, I tuned into this mind muscle connection
Mm.
where in between sets I would visualize myself doing the set, and then when I was doing the set I wouldn't listen to music or anything. I would just like focus in, and I would like pretend that I was the muscle that I was moving, and I would like pretend like I was like feel it as much as I possibly could. And that I think is good as a framework, like really trying to tune in with your body and just feel it.
Yeah, that mind muscle connection piece you're talking about, it's really interesting because there's an element of control and awareness of your body that gives you. But when it's taken too far, like bodybuilding, that real mind muscle connection, I think you're probably quoting Arnold there, like be the muscle, be like in the muscle. He was famous for that.
Exactly.
And that bodybuilding creates this neural connection with your muscles and how to create tension in each one at one time. And when that's taken too far for bodybuilders and those who get into that style of training, I see a neurological like waste. And when people are moving around, they end up quite clumsy and awkward because all of their neural sort of effort awareness is stuck in each of their muscles, and they'll be so aware of where their quads and their hips are, but they lose this true sense of balance and alignment because the true sense organs, of course we know our mouth, nose, eyes, ears, we have this sense there, but our hands and our feet, they are part of the sense organs as well. They're actually in embryology, which I've done little understanding, but they all evolve from the same area. There's this particular area. I used to know the name, but it's slipping my mind there. But you, the nose, the mouth, the eyes, when that embryo forms, everything comes from that same spot, and the hands and the feet are involved in that area. Now, that is just to tell you how important these are as sense and awareness. And when you've got your hands, your feet on the ground, and you're sort of, moving, you've got this awareness and this alignment that where your head is and your balance is. That's so important. And when you're attached to your pecs, your chest, your biceps, there's this interference of true athleticism, awareness, and spontaneity, the ability to react and move. And bodybuilders, typical gym goers, lose that sense and fluidity. And you see it with people who just play sport their whole lives. They're snappy, elastic. When you play a particular sport, your body morphs and evolves to that. So we need to watch out for that. But that's a separate topic, because when you continuously do something, your body adapts to it. swimmers have a certain shape and posture. Typically, powerlifters have a certain shape and posture area they hold tension. Tennis players, obviously, that sort of tension and build over to one arm, the dominance of one side. And when you go hard on a sport and you essentially specialize, you will lose a certain natural rhythm and default movement pattern that leads to niggles, aches, pains, injuries when we don't have that default. So everything that I'm trying to do with my systems and all the awareness around natural movement is bringing us back to what is the actual human species consistency around movement. How are we evolved to move? Because you look at a gorilla move. From a baby to an adult, they move a certain way. Look at a lion, cub, mama walking next to each other, they move the same. Elephant, baby, adult, they move the same. They have a certain sort of rhythm and flow. Now with humans, it gets a bit funky because we crawled when we were first kids, and then young kids move a certain way, you know, early teens, once they've got this sort of coordination, awareness of their body, they're pretty elastic, fluid, especially if they had a good childhood. They were, crawled well, spent time on the ground. They weren't up in chairs too often, and their parents, didn't put them in chairs too much. They were able to interact with the ground. Then they have this certain elastic rhythm and flow. You see in indigenous tribes people from childhood to adulthood, they sort of keep the same movement pattern. Now, in the modern world, we lose that movement pattern. And I think a large part is because of our detachment from the ground. So the floor resting postures themselves retune and reshape our body to its natural alignment. And then we need to learn to move and flow. I literally teach clients how to crawl, then walk, then run again. And the movement patterns that you feel in the crawl, that sort of flow of your spine, the head aligning over the sort of loaded leg, it's sort of your knee when you crawl. And then that should be your foot when you walk and run. And then we have the same elasticity, rhythm, and timing in the run. And when you have that, agility, cutting and turning, it's all spontaneous because you're in the natural movement pattern. Not only that spontaneity, fun movement, play any sport and be fairly good at it, or able to pick it up. You're not getting injured because your joints are moving as they're designed to. No niggles, aches, injuries. Your ability to even take contact, if it's a contact sport, improves because you're putting yourself in a position to absorb force. So it's just epic to see, from endurance athletes to agility, cutting and turning, like non-contact sports, football, basketball, then even contact sports, rugby, wrestling, BJJ, throwing, striking. We improve, we help athletes, or we help people learn those sports without picking up the injuries. And it's just from the basics. It's really like, I don't teach anything but the basics over and over and over and over again. And just, people don't need to be up on a wobble board, a balance board with an upside down kettlebell. It's like, dude, just get back to the floor, relearn certain movement mechanics, and then we could build from there. So yeah, it's moving away from compression, tension that we hold in the body. That mind muscle connection might be good for awareness, but true athletic sense comes from being in your entire body, not one segment of your body at a time. That's it, man. Yeah, it's so it's so key to just get back moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool, man. I think you make a really great point as to how this can help pretty much anybody, right? It doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter what you're doing. That fluidity, that that is something that is lost. It's funny.
Mm.
What popped in my mind. My wife and I last year in the winter, we went sledding and we went to this huge hill in Halifax. It's quite a steep hill. And we bought these little magic carpets and we're like, all right, we're gonna go, we're gonna go rip the sleds. And there's like obviously a bunch of kids there and they're all like, 12 years old or 10 years old or maybe even younger or maybe a little older, and they're flying down the hill, like the steepest part, and they're eating it at the bottom. They're flying off the sleds, they're rolling off these sleds, and none of them are getting hurt. None of
Yeah.
them are getting hurt. They're able to really like unconsciously almost like flow with the ground once they're like rolling down the hill. It's so funny,
Oh
man.
yeah.
And there was this one of the parents there. He was funny, man. He was like probably in his 40s or something, and he kept joking around like with Kelsey and I, and he was like, yeah, he's like, if once you tense up, that's when you get hurt. Once you tense up, if you wipe out, you just got to let go. You just got to be loose. You got to be loose. You got to stay loose.
100%.
And that's what he kept saying. He's like, you got to stay loose. You got to stay loose. And like, it's just funny, man. The guy had the wisdom, and he even went down a couple times, and he was like, he was in his 40s, but he was still moving well. Like you could tell that he still had a little bit of that fluidity. He wasn't scared of going down the hill and tensing up and, you know, worrying about injury, right? He could flow with the whatever happens. And the other thing that kind of pops through my mind here is like drunk drivers don't get injured as much as people who aren't intoxicated. Like, when because their body is so loose, right?
Yeah.
Like they're kind of able to let go of that tension.
Yeah.
Please
More
interject.
more accidents, but when you're not getting hurt in that accident. So let's make that clear.
All right, good. All right, great point. Great point.
Live
Great
is
point.
not saying get drunk and drive.
No, but
You'll be
it's a
you
funny
will
observation.
you'll be
You're
banned
right.
so quickly, bro.
Yeah. Appreciate that, brother. Take care of you too.
Like,
Um, It but
so
it but
true,
it's
man.
true,
So true.
less injuries, more accidents, but less injuries. Often the ones that are drunk are the ones that survive these really unfortunate incidents, right? And the
Mm,
the people in the other car, the innocent people who were sober, all pass, even though it
yeah.
was the same accident, right? It's just because
Wow.
they were able to be loose, and they absorbed that, right? They were really loose, and um that's what they kind of say there. But that staying loose, that staying fluid, even if you're not a top athlete, even if you're not
Mm.
a basketball player, if you're not a football player, hockey player, whatever, you know, I want to be able to go sledding with my kids and not have to worry about getting injured. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be able to play with my kids and run around with my dog and climb trees, and if a branch breaks, I'm not gonna die or break my whatever. Like, things happen. Things can happen, but I don't want to sprain my ankle playing around with the kids in the yard. You know what I mean? Like it's not just top level athlete stuff here. Like like moving these basics that you're talking about, getting to the floor and crawling. And
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I didn't know that about, drunk drivers, in a collision not getting hurt as much as as the other party. But that staying loose is so important. And what it allows, like, for your listeners to kind of understand, we're relaxed, we're at ease, and you can move subconsciously without much thought, with instinct, right? And when you fall, your body knows what to do. It knows how to sort of roll and move. You can spend some time training it. You might have to sort of be a bit conscious when you first learn it, but eventually, your body knows what to do. You can catch. You'll start to do things that shock yourself. You jump out of that tree. You know how to sort of roll and absorb that force. And the same thing, like you say, sledding down the hill. When you're loose, your body can roll with what's around you. When you try consciously move, you're moving awkwardly. You can't be as quick. You'll miss that ball if you try, like, actively, kind of, all right, shoulder up, hand, foot. It's too much. You've got to relax,
can't do it like
watch.
that, man.
Yeah, relax, be focused. There can be a sort of focus on the ball, like, that's cool, but it's almost like a relax, a confidence and ease, and you're there. You can't start to think like, oh, this is what I'm going to do when I catch the ball, this is what I'm going to change, if the ball goes here, I'll make that. No, no, no. It's you're limiting yourself to too few options, and you can't be spontaneous, because in sport, there's there's too many things that could happen. So you need to be relaxed, at ease in your body, and then you'll be sort of spontaneous, and that performance, that those abilities improve, and then you're falling, you're interacting with the ground. Oh, you can just do that so much better when you're relaxed, at ease, and lengthening into that backside, decompressing your body again, learning to breathe into your belly. That's all a way to sort of decompress, feel less tension, be less conscious, in sort of areas of your body, and just feel abilities. Those hands, those feet, your balance. For the thing that I love about this sort of training is I spoke about the basics and things being basics. I think that's what's important. But the progression is infinite. You can go take a sport once you learn this balance and alignment. And let's say you do like the bow staff, where people like flick the stick around. I love to watch people doing that. It's just like, you might learn to spin it in front of you like this with both your hands. And then you learn to spin it on the side. Then you learn to spin it on the side with one hand. Then you learn to flick it through your fingers instead of roll around your hand. Then you learn to throw it. Then you learn to throw it and spin it. And then you learn to throw it and spin it twice. And then it's like, whoa, there's infinite opportunities. But then you'll go watch a video and there's someone throwing two sticks, one in each hand, spinning and flowing and moving. But they're also, do a freaking backflip halfway through. And it's just like there's infinite ability of skill and coordination and timing, and expressing this stuff. And dance is an example of that, because dance is kind of infinite. You can't really say like, oh, that was the perfectly executed thing that was 10 kilos better than you did last time. And we like these sort of progressions in the gym. It doesn't make sense that like mechanical progression that we make in the gym, it can only go so far, and eventually those same movement patterns over and over again, they break us. But when we look at movement, you can experiment forever, your entire lifetime, with different forms of movement. And if you keep these basic principles in mind, lengthening into the backside, softening through the front side of your body, being loose, understanding the shoulder mechanics, the way they're designed to flow and move, you learn that from the crawl. You can apply that to anything you want. And it could be a particular sport, a style of dance, martial arts. That's where I start to respect that stuff more, look into that stuff, dance, martial arts, because there's a never-ending progression, fluidity, timing, coordination that you can gain. Whereas the gym, you think that's like progressive overload, that's the true way to progress. No, there's a limit there. You've never seen anyone stick to progressive overload forever. Otherwise, you'd see someone have deadlifted 10,000 kilograms. If that maths is
There's a
true. I
limit.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point.
it's fascinating. But yeah,
Yeah.
that being at
I
ease,
I think there's
subconscious
a
is so important. Yeah,
oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
I want to draw an interesting connection, kind of bring it full circle a little bit. Um, this this tension that we're talking about in the body. An interesting observation that, I've kind of been making, and again, there's a lot of people talking about this kind of stuff, but I find it interesting that sometimes, like when people get stressed, their neck gets really tense. It's
Hmm.
like a common one. Their traps, they tense up, their shoulders go up to their ears. You know, the way that stress can even affect our muscles, and our bodies in general. Um, Disallowing us from being in this flow state, this free flowing movement where we're able to be loose at will. I think that's something that is really interesting to bring into this conversation, because when we're talking about that flow state and the ability to roll with it and kind of tune into the moment, focus is important, like we're saying, but not you're not consciously playing the sport. You're kind of trying to let your body go on autopilot and tuning into that focus and that rhythm, that flow state. Like the best tennis I ever play is when I'm just locked in. Everyone knows they play the best sports when they're locked in.
Hmm.
What does that even mean, right? Like how do you lock in? How do you even do that? What are you doing? You're in this flow state.
In
You're
the
just
zone.
rolling with it. You're focused, you're tuned into the moment. And these psychological stressors can take us away from the moment. You're focused on the past. You're focused on that bad play that you just made. You know, that'll take you out of the moment. I'm sure you'll play a worse shift because you're focused on that last play. You know, or
Mm.
you're worried about the next play. You need to play the one right in front of you. You know, being tuned in. That's when you'll play best, guaranteed. Ask any athlete, ask anybody that does anything. It's that flow state they'll talk about, and they'll call it a bunch of different names. Um,
Yeah.
but that psychological component to all this is really interesting. Now, you know, thinking back the start of this conversation, saying, yeah, like trying to heal these psychological stressors. You know,
Mm.
one of the ways that we could do that is trying to get into this flow state, you know, moving our bodies. You know, this is one of the things that we've lost, and
Mm.
that I think it's like an easy step one. You got to will up the willpower, I guess, to go out and crawl around in your front yard, and all your neighbors are gonna think you're that weird guy crawling around and the dude in your backyard or something. I do it in my front yard. All my neighbors think I'm wild, man. But um, so
That's good.
funny, man. Like, you know, like mustering up the willpower there to just move your body. You're gonna get that fluidity back. You know, and that fluidity, that feeling, that bodily ability is gonna translate psychologically too. You know, if your if your mind is fluid and your body will be fluid, you know, your
Mm.
body's fluid, your mind will be fluid. It goes hand in hand. Is there a right way to approach it? Maybe if you are psychologically stuck, you need to address that first, perhaps. But I think everyone can benefit from working these natural movement patterns that get us into this proper flow state, these movement patterns that we've lost. This is
Mm.
exactly what we lost. And
Mm.
this is exactly what we're talking about here. So cool, man. I just love it. This conversation's just motivating me. I'm gonna go out and crawl for the rest of the day, I think.
Yeah, I love it, man. Yeah, crawl for the rest of the day. Yeah, it's amazing, and you're kind of like you were, contemplating the question there, or which comes first, the mind, the body. Hey, whichever works for you. Some
Yeah.
people need to go sit and meditate and clear their mind. That works for them. Some people that doesn't appeal to them. I think everyone should be able to sit still and do nothing, but movement is a great one because you're just focusing on your feet, your crawl, the movement. If you're flipping a stick or doing rope flow or something, you're just focusing on that timing, and you are in the present. You can't be thinking about the past, the future, um,
Mhm.
and it's just amazing. It's a meditation. It's a healing, and the more you start to feel any tension that you're holding as do more complex moves, you'll notice things and learn to let go of that, and you'll have these tools, right? You'll start to learn that lengthening into your backside helps decompress you. Learning to breathe into your belly helps decompress you. Spreading your feet and grabbing the ground helps you know create a certain alignment, and you can do that while you're sitting in a car, but you got to learn it in a quiet place, right? You can do that, apply that if you're sitting in a stressful office. You can use these tools that you've learned, and you learn so much about yourself, how to decompress, relieve tension, and yeah, that psychological side of things and way of thinking, I'm starting to get more and more interested in. Unnatural ways we've learned to think, and everyone worries about whether people think. So I bring this up because you've obviously overcome that crawling in the backyard. But people worrying about what other people think is madness. All right. So there's one thing that's going to cause stress, and that's you overthinking something. Now, you know we shouldn't overthink, but that's one thing. Now, overthinking about what someone else is thinking but probably isn't thinking about you, that's true madness, and that's a way to be angry, depressed, and go through it all. So it's just, yeah, it's we got to get that mind quiet and relaxed and control the way we think. this movement piece is a tool. It's an aid in that. So, which you've got to attack and go after, not attack, you see, I've got that mind of like attack, train it out of you. I'm trying to like alter these ways of thinking because it's the way I've thought for so long. So even this conversation's like, it's a vulnerable one for me because I'm learning how to think differently myself, but it's worth
Amazing.
bringing up because it's so important, man.
Mhm.
We're all stuck in, thinking the wrong way. And essentially, yeah,
Yeah,
it's so simple. And coming back
definitely.
to the way we're designed to move, natural movement, you know trying not to get too caught up in these unnatural ways of thinking. Lifestyle, nutrition, we haven't touched on that yet, but that's all stuff that can ground us, bring us closer to nature, have this healing and effect on your psychology, mood, and even your movement. When people take care of nutrition, and they're getting grounded, they're sleeping well in the morning, they're properly hydrated. Now your fascias and your tissue, your fascia and your tissues work with you. There's less limitations and restrictions. So it all ties in. And this is exactly what you started with, that you can't just pick one of these things. Once you're open and you understand it's a return to nature that we need, it's nutrition, it's lifestyle, it's training and movement, and then the side of things that I'm not so um, there with yet, and don't sort of coach myself, but know are important, are the psychological side of things. We can talk about faith, within that, but definitely nutrition, lifestyle, training, movement. Those are three things that I've seen people, when we take care of those three pillars, and that's sort of how I coach and what I promote. Things get so much better in other aspects of life, man. So it's just everything returning to a more natural state.
A point I want to make is that, you know, sometimes it is difficult to quiet the mind out of the blue. We do live in this
Mm,
dopamine heavy world. We're stimulated constantly. Work
right.
is stressful. We work jobs that we don't care about. We're constantly watching, consuming, you know, the news and social media and all things that are meant to instill negative thoughts and beliefs into us, right?
Yeah.
Um, I've noticed that it is a lot easier for me to do a little meditation at the end of a movement session. That's why they have
Mm.
shavasana at the end of yoga. That's why it's easier. I find very much easier to quiet the mind after movement. And I think that says a lot. I think that says a lot and again, like you said, there's no right way to go about healing and health. You got to kind of do it. And at the end of the day, I truly believe that everything goes hand in hand. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, that movement piece, if there is a first step, that's what it is, in my opinion. If we can generalize anything as much as we can generalize everything with knowing that there are outliers out there, um, yeah, that movement piece
Oh
is
yeah.
big.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you just, you know, what you been up to, man? Like, we kind of got right into it, and I didn't really get any updates. Like, how's life
Yeah.
going, man? Like, how's a dog? How's everything going?
Yeah, things are going well, man. A big shift happened last time we chatted. I was based in Portugal, and I
Yeah.
knew, Africa was, calling me home. I grew up, in Africa, here in Zambia, which is, where I'm based now. Born in South Africa, so African, born and raised. So that never leaves you, and well, it never left me. um so being in Portugal, being in Europe, I felt like I was like out on this tether. I was so far away from like my roots, and it was great because I went out, you know completely new skill set, different way of thinking, and I've sort of come back to Africa with, as a different person. But now coming back to Zambia, it was a real, like, back to my roots, coming home, reconnecting with family, especially with my dad. I'm back close, and living out with him. At the moment, while I'm sort of first back here in Zambia. But dude, we're going out hunting. My first memories were going out hunting with my dad. My dad is actually a professional hunter. When we were growing up, and he was running safaris, hunting safaris as well as photographic safaris out in an area called Luangwa, which is a great sort of beautiful wild area here in Zambia. And just coming back to hunting was a real like return to my roots, man. So, everything we hunt, we eat. Of course, during the safaris, there were people, trophy hunting. I didn't sort of agree with a lot of that, but it's what we were involved in when we were growing up. But yeah, even first couple of weeks I got back, I went out and hunted an impala, which is this beautiful antelope. It was actually the first antelope I ever hunted when I was 8 years old. Hunted it with my dad. And then sort of came back after 7, 8 years away from Africa. I was like, right, I'm going to hunt an impala with, an old friend of mine who I grew up hunting with. So, we went out hunting and stocked the freezer with some good meat, and shared a lot of the meat with family and friends. And I've been doing that. I've hunted a kudu and a bushbuck, which are also, small to medium sized antelope here in Africa, and it's just beautiful to go out hunting, doing it yourself, part of the whole process, and sharing the meat with family and friends, man. And it's just like a reconnection to hunting has been just, yeah, a real reawakening, revival of me. Yeah, dude, it's been great. It's been great. So I'm back in Africa.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hunting is one of those things that you want to tune in to nature and talk about health.
yeah,
The beauty about hunting is you reconnect with the land, and
oh yeah,
you're you want to eat locally. You want to eat locally, shop at a farmer's market's all right, but going and harvesting your own food, not only you're eating the most fresh prime game out there that's local to your environment, but it connects to you, man. Like you're harvesting that yourself. You really value that food. Like when you work for your food
oh yeah.
and you sit down at that first meal, like what's that feeling like?
Dude, it's incredible when that first of all, the hunting and being with the animal there, as it sort of passes. The last hunt I was, I hunted a bushbuck, and when you shoot an animal in the shoulder, you shoot it through its lungs and its heart, and the animal only dies when the blood is stopped sort of pumping through its body into its brain. So even if it's a perfect shot, unless you're shooting it in the brain, that animal's alive for a little while. So um, you know that's the way of things, that animal's dying naturally. I sometimes think a hit on the head and just like bang gone is unnatural, because that heart and lung shot, whether it's with a bow or with a rifle, that animal dies gradually. And if you can be there, there's select few times where I've sort of been there with the animal as it passes, right? Like that can be dangerous because a wounded animal can hurt you. And we'll talk a bit about that because there's been a couple of crazy stories, people getting hurt by animals like that recently. But I was there with that bushbuck as it sort of passed, this last animal I hunted, and there's just something amazing. Like your hands are on the animal, like as it sort of passes, and it's just like you were right there with that animal whose life you took. And anyone who sort of knows that, there's something so special there as a hunter, and that meat, that you know life given has given meat to you, your family, your friends, and sharing that with others, or creating a meal for others, or around here with the community. If someone does something for me or lends me something, I'll give them a package of meat that I've hunted. And it's that for me, there's no better feeling than that, like giving someone that package of meat that I've you know spent that effort hunting.
It's a
It's
beautiful
just
gift.
it's just such a beautiful feeling, as a man, and as someone who has, like, I think I was put here to do that. I literally have a lineage of hunters in my family. My dad, my late uncle, they were hunters, and they grew up hunting. And part of that, they grew up in Rhodesia, which is now known as Zimbabwe. So the family history there is quite interesting, because Rhodesia was, a group of people who sort of went off into North Africa to create a sort of colony in North Africa, and they were strong, like hardy people. So my family, my blood came from that. So it's really special to go out and hunt again.
Wow.
My uncle, who passed 2 months ago, he hunted his whole life, and he was killed by a buffalo, by a wounded buffalo. They were following a wounded buffalo, and he was killed. And it's obviously sad, and quite a shock. But that's hunting, and that's real life. Like these things happen, and I have the utmost respect. And I think my uncle would have been so well. I'm proud of him, and I'm think there's no better way to go as a man, doing what you love, doing your sort of life's purpose, life's passion. Literally hunting the animal that sort of he specialized in, and dedicated his life to hunting. And that's how he went. Like, as a man doing what you love, you know there's some power there, and there's something incredible there. So Africa has really sort of brought me back to the reality of life and death. And a lot of us are so disconnected from that, and it's strange. We should be more connected to that. So many people are like fear death, and worry that these little things that you do are you know scary, or starting a new business, quitting a job. It's just like, man, we were always meant to be taking risks, putting ourselves out there, not unnecessarily, but life is, yeah, life's beautiful, and so is death, and it's all part of it. So that got real deep real quick, but that's what Africa and being back here sort of unlocked in me. The realities of real struggle. Like, I'm around real struggle around here. Like, I walk around even just sort of in our neighborhood here, and when I can, I try to get packages of meat donated, and I'll go out and like give meat to some people in the local area, because they can't afford meat here. It's insane. Like, they live on vegetables and maize starch. Especially right now, there's severe power outages and power cuts. So living in the town now, they obviously rely on refrigeration for any meat. And now everywhere, the local shops that stock meat, especially for the poverty stricken township areas, they've all closed down. So you know these people can't get meat, can't get eggs, and the way the health is sort of gonna deteriorate in energy. I mean, literally, it's sad. These are real problems, and it's in Europe. I was detached from real problems, so little problems became big problems. And now coming back to Africa, it's just like there's a real understanding of respect for struggle in life. And yeah,
Yeah.
I went on a lot there, and it's obviously a bit sort of emotional. Just sort of stayed a bit open there, but it's yeah, coming back to Africa has been something. Has been something.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, brother. I mean, that is powerful, and I think you really highlight some of the beautiful parts of life that so many people are missing too, right? Like that humility that nature teaches,
Mm,
that need for bravery. It's quite a beautiful thing. Um, it,
mm,
it's uh it's amazing what nature can teach us when you truly experience it. There's plenty of people that are out there that, get back to nature, live like this, live like that, and maybe they're trying to sell you a supplement or something, but getting out and really experiencing it, and um, that's where these lessons can be learned. And I think you highlighted that really well there. I really appreciate you sharing that, brother. Um, I think that's amazing. I'm glad that you're home.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. So I covered a lot there. Hunting and um, you know sourcing your own meat. I think is something everyone wants to be able to do, and I wonder if that's something you've sort of been able to do out by you, or something you plan on doing. Is that sort of on the cards there?
Yeah, it's the goal. I mean, I went hunting with my dad when I was a kid. We had some birds and stuff, and we never
Yeah.
got too lucky with it. I mean, we were huge hunters, but there's some big game out here. There's moose is fantastic, um, and bear. They hunt a lot of bear in Nova Scotia. There's quite a problem of bears actually in a lot of communities here. So they were trying to open up the bear season to have a spring season, and um, we just have black bears. We don't have grizzlies or anything like that, but they get into the garbage and they kind of torment the the towns a bit. And but anyways, the you know the liberals or whoever, the environmentalists, the in quotation,
Mm.
they shut that one down. So no spring season for us for the bear. But
Uh,
yeah, there's
okay.
plenty around. Where I'm from at home there in PEI,
Mm.
there's no big game. We don't have bear, we don't have deer, we don't have moose, we don't have anything like that. It's all been hunted
Okay.
out of existence because
Right.
it's
Right.
just a small island, right?
Yeah.
But there's still lots of deer here. There's still lots of bear and less moose, but there's still. I think they do it by tags here, so you get your tag and you can hunt moose. But if you go up to like Newfoundland or even New Brunswick, there's a ton of big game around, and it's good too.
Right.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah.
good.
Those big animals are what we got to chase because we need that fat, man. Like those big animals that have more fat. Like, oh, we can't survive without that. I don't know if
Yeah.
you know me. I'm sort of like big into animal based, way of eating. Um,
Yeah.
and it's when you go that route, you start to understand like if you're just eating leaner meat, even like these animals that I've hunted, they're quite lean animals, and that lack of fat is a problem. There's something called rabbit starvation. It's quite a cool story because it helps people sort of remember this. If you're on an island and you've got thousands of rabbits, and they you're obviously not going to run out. They're sort of breeding. You will eventually starve to death because there is not enough fat on them to sustain you. So that sort of energy source of the fat is important. So that those large animals that have fat, it's a much more, yeah, much more valuable meat. So that sort of moose and the larger animals, they say we as a species evolved hunting the megafauna, right? Like the mammoths and the big sort of large animals, and they obviously had a lot of fat, so that makes sense. Here we've got some remaining sort of large animals in Africa. Of course, the giraffe, hippo, elephant, rhino, buffalo. They're sort of big, fatty animals. There's a couple on that list you can't hunt, of course. But the buffalo, that's what we're actually going to hunt in early November. So we grew up hunting. It was something my dad and I always spoke about, even from the age of 18. And it was kind of this like undone rite of passage for me that I've never done is hunt my own buffalo. I've been on buffalo hunts where other people have sort of hunted the buffalo, but when you're the one who sort of stalks the animal, takes first shot, it's sort of your buffalo. So now at 21, I was supposed to do it. At 25, there was an option that I didn't get to take, and it sort of evaded me this whole time. But now in November, we're going out to hunt buffalo, and hopefully, if all goes to plan, if sort of God wills it, we'll come back with with some good fatty meat after that.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we'll have to keep up because I'll be eager to hear how that goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100,
So
100%,
cool.
man.
Is it
100%.
is it pretty restricted there? Like, how's the like, or is it fairly open? Like, is there animals that are off limit? Like, is there like a patrol and it's kind of we have like um like Department of Forestry, different things like that regulate it all, right? And
Yeah.
they'll hunt you down, and if you're not hunting up to par. So how's that work in Africa?
Yeah, yeah. There's sort of rules you got to stick to. There's certain quotas. They look at each area and they look at the population, then they determine how many buffalo or certain any antelope that are available from a particular area. So if um, Luawata, an area in Luangwa, has an overpopulation of buffalo, of course there might be 20, 30 to go and hunt that year. Otherwise, if the numbers are small, they won't. The quota, might not be open. There might be no buffalo available. Um, so they look at the ecosystems. They determine what's going to be available, and then those licenses become available to hunters who apply, have the right sort of permits and licenses for the right size rifles to hunt that game, can apply for buffalo licenses, and then each year they go into a raffle and a draw to see who gets these licenses, and that's how the residence permits work. But you can, go through and um, go to private areas, or pay a larger fee for hunting these animals. But it's all
Gotcha.
through the Zawa, Zambia Wildlife Authority. At least that's what it used to be called. I don't know what it's called now, but it's Zambia Wildlife Authority. Yeah,
Cool. Really cool,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
It's
Well,
brilliant.
brother, I think we could probably wrap this up and put a bow on it here. If you want to give us some final thoughts on the episode, anything that you want to add or that you think we might have missed, anything at all. Now's the
No,
time to share.
oh no, I love it, man. I think just to recap that, like, connection to movement, connection, is connection to everything else, man. And there's just these amazing tools to decompress the body, get back to the floor, learn the sort of correct mechanics of the crawl, try apply that to your walk and run, feel out your own body through the breath, and meditation to feel any sort of tightnesses that you yourself will subconsciously know how to release, and then dance to move energy through the body, man. I think if there's three things, it's get back to the floor, decompress, crawl, use those biomechanics, and dance, move, be spontaneous, and enjoy. Because you can take that to any sort of discipline, whether it's sort of outdoors, hiking, moving, hunting like I am, whatever sport you enjoy, sort of tennis, spontaneity, decompression, a relaxed mind, and body is ready for movement. You can have more fun with it.
Amazing. Yeah. Awesome, brother.
I
So how
love
can
it.
we learn more from you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, Instagram's a good place, man. Thanks for asking. Yeah, Instagram's a good place. Fit.coach_Bryan. Um, playing around with all that, because if fit coach Bryan, it's kind of what I've been for a while. But revival fitness is a sort of new program in coaching that I'm starting, and that's integrating not just the movement and corrective exercise, which I've done for years, but that's the nutrition, lifestyle, and movement and training all coming together. So I'm sort of moving into that. So that revival fitness is something that'll be sort of up and coming. Challenges and commitments to taking care of yourself will be available coming into the new year. But yeah, fit.coach_Bryan is my Instagram. Yeah.
Cool, brother. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Man, you ever think about doing YouTube videos? Because I'm sure I would love to hear like long form content from you. Like these podcasts from you, man, are awesome, dude. Like, do you do other podcasts, anything like that? Because almost the Instagram videos aren't enough for me, at least.
Right, right. No, dude, like, YouTube is something I always say, or I'm getting into it. So I'll release my first YouTube this weekend, and then consistently into next week. How about that? Right.
Let's go, brother. Yeah, I'm happy I kind of started that for you, I guess. No, I'm just joking.
100%.
That's awesome.
100%. Right. No, dude,
Cool,
that's great.
brother. All
And
right. Well,
good to connect with
go
you, man.
ahead.
We'll keep in touch. Right.
Always. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much again for your time today. Yeah,
Love it. Love it. We'll get you out to Africa at
awesome.
some stage.
Well, one of these days, I'm sure, yeah, we'll definitely do that. That would be so cool, man.
Love
Definitely.
it, dude. Love it.
All right. I want to thank you all for listening. You should all know that it's not medical advice for your informational purposes only, but also remember we're all responsible sovereign beings capable of thinking, criticizing, understanding absolutely everything and anything. We the people and the greater force are together, self-healers, self-governable, self-teachers, and so much more. Make sure you reach out if you have any questions, criticisms, comments, concerns. Give us a follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're on. You know how to support us best. Leave us a review. That's a great way to support us if you're listening to the podcast. And leave a comment if you're on YouTube. If you liked it, of course, if you found it informative, that's the great way to help. If you really like it, make sure you share with a friend, share with a family member, anything like that also goes a long way. Sharing is caring. All right, guys, remember there are two types of people in the world: those believe they can, those believe they can't, and they are both correct. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Take care.